Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Matt Belair podcast. Today's guest is a charismatic, visionary, and transformational teacher. He offers a fresh, bold look at spiritual awareness for a whole new generation. He quickly learned that the outside-in approach favored by so many in the personal development space had to become an inside-out approach. So he decided to create his own method, a process that liberates the individual and the true self at the core, and then pushes those gifts outward into the universe. This helps the individual get in touch with who they really are. It is a process of breaking free so that the individual can live, give, and share their truest expression of their self. This is what he calls liberated living. Colored with experiences from his own incredible journey, his debut book, You Are the One, published by Simon & Schuster, which is a big deal for those of you who don't know that already, shows readers how to unlock their true potential and live a life they love through love. He is a next generation world leader out to awaken millions to love and to live their inspired destiny. Welcome to the show, Kute Blackson.
Great to be here, brother. Thanks for having me.
Oh, what a pleasure. What a pleasure to read that bio, man.
Love it. Love it. Thank you.
I love the intention. Just the intention behind that's beautiful. And I shortened the introduction a little bit because I figured it would be a lot better if you explained it. As I was reading your background and doing a little bit of research on this interview, I thought it was really interesting. So why don't you fill the people in on that amazing?
Yeah, I could probably talk for a few days on it, but just to shorten my bio a little bit too. I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana. My mother's Japanese. I grew up in London. People often ask me, where are you from? And I never know. It just depends on how I feel in the moment. But I always feel very connected to just being alive, being a human, being a soul on this journey. So, my first memories as a young boy literally was this deep, unexplainable burning desire to make a difference in people's lives. I always felt this calling, being around age 5 to impact people, to serve people, to touch people. And I just knew in my heart that my life wasn't really my life. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. But also around that time, 5, 6, 7, I remember, I don't know exactly when it was, let's just say around age 6, I remember being this chubby kid lost in the crowd in Ghana, West Africa. And literally seeing this crippled woman crawling on the floor, and she was crippled and mangled, and she picks up the sand that this man walks on, wipes it on her face, and stands up. And so you call that a miracle. And so week after week, I was really privileged. I mean, it just seemed normal at the time. I didn't think much about it, but week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear, and people stand up of wheelchairs. The same man who essentially picked up would look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, stand up, why are you sitting down? Look at a woman, a man would come in with crutches and they'd say, why do you have your crutches? Throw them away. And they would say, but I'm sick. And he would say, do you believe? And they would say, yes. And so, throw them away, walk. And this man was my father. And he built about 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, had hundreds of thousands of followers, was the spiritual teacher advisor to the 2 presidents, the 2 kings, revered in that part of the world. He built a huge church in London. So I grew up in this very sort of mystical, spiritual environment. And age 8, I started speaking in my father's churches for the first time as a chubby little kid. And to be honest, people say, what was it like? I honestly don't really remember. I just was thrown up on stage and stuff started coming through me. And that's really, I think, my first memory of feeling this connection to the divine, like something was happening through me that I wasn't conscious of, that was bigger than myself. So that's when you can say my career in some form or shape, even though it's evolved, began. Age 14, I was pretty much, it was announced to thousands of people that I was going to be taking over my father's churches. I was going to be the successor to his organization and taking over, which was very interesting for me at the time because I didn't know any other way. But when it was announced, I knew deep in my heart that this wasn't my path. This wasn't really my unique calling in this lifetime. And I didn't say anything. I went along with it because the truth is I didn't want to rock the boat. I was afraid to be outcast. I was terrified of losing my father's love. Hundreds of thousands of people literally, had their hopes and dreams and expectations for what they wanted me to be and what my life was going to be. And I went along with it out of fear. And I knew the truth in my heart. I knew something was off. And I think many times we know the truth. We know what's true, what's really authentic, but we're afraid. We're afraid of acknowledging the truth. So we settle, we rationalize, we distract ourselves, we lie, and we pretend, and we play games. So you could say at a young age, I did all of those things. And it took me about 4 years to muster up the courage to really own this is not my path. And I literally, being around 17, 18, saw my destiny set out, my father's life, what he envisioned for my life. And it was so painful to feel. Like I felt like if I followed his path for my life, it was like I was committing suicide, a soul suicide. And the pain was so intense that I remember just crying, just feeling like, my God, this is my life, and I knew I couldn't betray my heart. I knew I couldn't betray my soul. So mustered up the courage to have a conversation with my father. And that's when my whole life went in a totally different direction. But it took a lot of courage. It took a tremendous amount of willingness to not compromise who I am and not compromise my soul, because I knew I could become successful by everyone else's standards. But if I don't have myself, if I don't have who I really am, then I have nothing. I don't have anything. I've lost the game, no matter what I've gained in the world. So I left everything behind, followed the path of the unknown. Cut long story short, ended up winning a green card in the lottery, and came to the US. And that's when I really felt the power of the universe. Like I really feel like when we're true to ourselves, when we really follow our soul's intention, our soul's knowing, then we're being guided by a force way bigger than our minds, way bigger than our personalities. That's when we kind of tap into grace. And so winning a green card in the lottery was just like miraculous. And that's when I really felt like I was on the right path, and ended up coming to the US, 2 suitcases, one in the country, straight to Los Angeles with $1,000. And the whole crazy journey began as an 18, 19-year-old kid many years back. And it was wild. I came because I wanted to find mentors. When I was from 8 to 18, I had been reading all the books of the spiritual teachers and gurus, and many of whom personal growth icons, best-selling authors. And so I thought, I want to come learn from these people, and most of them lived in California, Southern California, Los Angeles. And so let me come learn, find them. This was pre-internet, pre-Facebook, and let me come find them and learn from these guys. So I came and I found many of them and harassed many of them and knocked on their doors and learned from some of them. And it was a hell of a journey. And then I went on my own journeys because I kind of realized some of the limitations of certain approaches, and I wanted more. I was tired of just garnering information. I wanted to, let's just say, I wanted to know God. I wanted to know truth. I wanted to know what real happiness was, not based on someone else's idea or based on a book or based on, what happened 20 years ago. I wanted to know the truth for myself. I wanted to know God and truth like Gandhi knew it, so I basically went on a quest, started traveling. I went to India, spent months and months in India, in search of answers. Went to Thailand, went to Bali, went to Israel, studied with rabbis, went to Japan, studied with monks, and just went on a quest, my friend. And you could say began to unravel my own conditioning and tap into my own knowing and my own soul's truth. And that's when I came back about 15 years ago, back to LA, back to the West, and decided I felt so free, after this period of time of just unraveling layers. I felt so free to be who I am, free to express myself, free to be myself, that I felt this deep desire to share, to teach, to coach people in their own transformation and serve people as a result of my own transformation. And that's when, I started working with people one-on-one, and it just grew to 1-on-2, 1-on-10, 1-on-20, 100, 500. It just kept expanding to the point where we're here today. So that's the short version.
I love it, man. few times where I wanted to kind of jump in,
Yeah. Yeah.
ask questions. And there's so many different ways that I can go down that route. You're kind of, the way that you've experienced it is very similar to my experience. I was younger and I was just so interested in self-development and Zen, you know, and enlightenment and mind power and Bruce Lee from martial arts. And I was like, how do I, you know, hit enlightenment and, you know, do all these miracles? Now there's so many different ways that I want to go down this, but I think it should be addressed because I'm just curious. You're saying that your father, when he was having these churches, was doing spontaneous healings and healing people?
Oh yeah, day after day, every day. Like, you know, I'm not gonna say hundreds a day, but you know, each day there were hundreds of people coming to see him. On Sunday, he had a church in the 80s in London, South London, Wandsworth, where there were probably like 5,000 people coming to church every Sunday, and he would have these healing services, and there would be a line of these 5,000 people. Take hours, you know. Church started at 2, we'd be done at 8 in the evening, like 6-hour party, and he'd be putting his hands on people, and people would just, you know, fall on the floor. People would get cured of cancer. I mean, I saw blind people, people in wheelchairs. I mean, people thought I was crazy until, like, I remember going to school talking about this stuff, feeling really weird, you know, like this sort of, I didn't fit the norm as a teenager, you know, so I'd go to school and tell my friends, hey, I just saw someone come in a wheelchair and they stood up, and they thought I was nuts. Next week, the teacher came to my dad's church and saw the same things happening. So yeah, but for me, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary because it's what I knew, you know. It wasn't anything so mystical or amazing, you know. It was like, oh, okay, it's just what was. And I think I grew up thinking, how did we lose touch with this innate gift that we all have? How did we lose touch with the miraculous to the point where we think it's strange, we think it's not doable, we think we don't have the healing capacity, you know, and innate intelligence inside of us? Like, what happened, you know? So yeah, I grew up seeing it week after week.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, did he share any kind of information on how that was possible? Because for me, because for me, I'm in the space of anything I think is possible. You know, if somebody levitates and hovers in front of my face, I am totally cool with that. And, you know, believe anyone's story, that's totally fine. The other people that we're trying to bring to this side of possibility are going to say, you know, how do you prove it? You know, this is like speaking in tongues and, you know, whatever. But I do know in a lot of traditions, you know, especially in Africa, I had a friend that was, you know, in Africa a lot of his life. His family was missionaries, you know, in the jungle in Peru, lots of wild stuff. And this is normal to them, right?
Yeah, man.
So, you know, how would he explain like something like this was possible?
So here's the thing. You know, it's one thing to see on TV, right? Or it's one thing to go to someone else's church or what have you. But the guy was my dad. So, you know, I saw him in his underwear. You know, I mean, I was like hanging out behind the scenes. So I saw it. I mean, it was like this close to me. You know, I was walking behind him as this toddler, seeing this crippled woman. So, and he didn't even know this woman was behind him picking up the sand. He only turned around because everyone started screaming. So I'm, you know, I was privileged now looking back to see it with my own eyes. No cameras. I mean, now I'm sure it'd be social media and everywhere, but this was before any of that. So I grew up seeing this with my eyes. And eventually, you know, when I was probably in my early 20s, I finally sat down and had a conversation with him. I said, how do you heal people? Because there's all these, because I came to America, right? There's all these modalities, chakras, do this, move this chi, pranic this, you know, just 17 steps. Then after you do 17 steps, then you finally like channel the energy. And I'm like, it's so complicated. And I think a lot of healing modalities, you know, the ego kind of holds on to them and wants to be the doer. It's like, I'm doing the healing, you know, I did these 17 steps and I healed you. And after speaking to him, he didn't say that much, but what he said opened up a whole new world for me, in that he looked at me and said, I don't do the healing. He goes, I'm very clear that I don't do the healing. He goes, oh. He goes, there is no healer. So you're not a healer? He goes, I'm not a healer. People might call me a healer, but I'm clear that I'm not a healer. And I'm clear that nobody is sick.
Mm.
Most people see sick people, so they stay stuck in the sickness. And that is just a reality. It's just a reality where they have either come together. A reality is just agreement. You know, like money. If I had $100 bill right now, I'd be like, well, what is this? It's a piece of paper, but we agree that it actually means something. So what he said was, those that are sick have agreed to the certain condition, have agreed to the matrix of their own limitation, but it's just agreement. So he said, well, what he said was, all I do is I simply see the perfection and the truth of who they really are. And I know what they really are. And what they really are is not just this limited body that might be a little mangled or limited or not able to walk. I don't see that, because I know that they are not the body. I know that what they are is a pure expression of consciousness, a pure manifestation of the divine. And the divine is perfect. The divine can't be sick. The divine is beyond birth, beyond death, is just transcends all. I just simply see the truth in someone. And I just reflect that back, and I remind them of the truth. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty interesting, you know? And he said, that's all I see. And I see the truth, and I call the truth forth from another individual. And I remind them of the truth, and I act as that mirror. And that's what he was doing, was he was acting as the mirror. And he was saying, do you believe? Well, no. Do you believe? Until they came into alignment, he was so good at holding the truth of who they were, even though they were wavering in that truth. And when they came into alignment with his agreement, when they came into agreement with what the truth of what he saw, the shift happened. It's like, oh, that's $100 bill. No, it's not. It is. It's $100. It means something. It doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does. No, it does. Oh, this $100 means something. Okay, boom, healing happened. And he said, so he said it's just seeing the truth, holding the truth, and reminding people of who they really are. And that really opened up a lot for me, you know, in terms of there is at least for me, you know, after, you know, because I left home and I studied with all these healers and shamans and, you know, crazy, amazing people, underground people in jungles and caves and what have you. And in Western seminars, you know, where all these, you know, Reiki, this, that, what have you. So complicated. And what I realized is often I think the ego gets involved and wants to be the doer. Mm. And when I look at anyone great, my father, I would put there, you know, the great ones that we've heard of and many that we haven't heard of. Jesus, Buddha, many healers in different indigenous cultures who we'll never hear of. When I look at the great ones, you know, they weren't that different from you and I. I think they just recognized that they were not the doer. They of themselves weren't doing anything. I think they recognized that really the whole process of healing is getting yourself out of the way. And when you're able to get yourself, the limited sense of self, out of the way, then that innate intelligence, the innate intelligence of life, is what can move through you to facilitate, you know, the correction in someone, the healing in someone. So for me, learning from my father has been a recognition too, because I think when there's this idea of healer, you know, and someone who's sick, it creates a sense of separation. Like I'm separate, I'm the healer and I'm separate from you. But I think when I recognize what I am, which is pure consciousness, recognize what you are, which is pure consciousness, then there's no separation and there's no one to heal. There's just one breathing us, you know, and that one is intelligent. It's an intelligence. So I think more and more also in my exploration, I think when we're able to create the right conditions, when we're able to create the space, then the body knows how to heal itself in the way that's most in alignment with our highest destiny. You know, just like if you cut your finger, right? If you cut your finger, you don't have to meditate. You don't have to do yoga. You don't have to be a good person. You don't have to do affirmations. You don't have to drink green juice. You don't have to be vegetarian. You don't have to go to Burning Man. You don't have to go to church, temple, read the Bhagavad Gita, you know, do tantra, breathe, do kundalini. You don't have to do nothing. If you cut your finger, you keep it clean. There's an intelligence inside of the body there's an intelligence, that same intelligence that's breathing me, it's breathing you, it's breathing 7 billion people, that same intelligence that birthed creation, the same intelligence that's functioning the animals, the gerbils, the fish, the air, the elements, the same intelligence, I believe, is what knows how to bring about the healing and the alignment within our bodies. So I think getting ourselves out the way and trusting that intelligence. So
yeah, there's a lot in there, and I can attest. I think one of the big things that you're talking about is really, and this is something that I know for sure as well. Like when people do channel, I have a friend that can do Akashic Records channeling and all this crazy stuff. You look at mediums like Abraham Hicks. All the Hicks material is probably the most popular one people will recognize. And I was talking about that today, and I was like, yeah, it's a channel. They're like, what the hell's a channel? And I was like, well, basically, I remove Matt, and then I allow energy or source or whatever to move, but you have to be able to get, so many people can't remove themselves, right? And you talk about the ego, and it's so common in the, the say spiritual or consciousness space. I see it. It's like the ego is so clever. It just latches on, right? It's like, totally, I am the healer. I'm doing this. And so the clarity of saying like, what is growing the trees? What is naturally healing myself? I got to do this 8-step plan, and then I will heal you of something, whatever the case is. And we know that there's something totally beyond us that is unexplainable. As Jesus said, what I have done, all men can do.
Everyone.
So, yeah, the recognition of perfection. I think that's such a profound statement. I'm trying to recall on.
Yeah. And my father, if there's one thing I saw, he had such faith, like it's so simple, but like faith, man, faith in that divine something. You just look at someone who was in that wheelchair. That requires like, you have to be totally in that alignment of like knowing. It's like saying, jump off the cliff, you're going to fly. Boom. And he would just look at someone. I saw it every Sunday, week after week after. He'd just look at someone, unflinching. Stand up. No waver. Stand up. Stand up. And that faith is that trust. I would say, not even faith. That trust, that knowing, is really profound. Really profound.
Is your father still with us?
Yeah, he's around. He's in Ghana, West Africa, right now. He's much older. Physical body's much older, but his spirit is still going, man.
Amazing. Yeah, we're going to have to get a documentary crew, see some of this. I think that with this whole shift of, it's baby steps. I feel deeply without, I've seen some pretty amazing things in my time. And I feel deeply that all of that is possible. People really need baby steps to get there. So, the more we can show and bring to light and have these experiences, imagine a kid from Ghana, West Africa, just being in your public school or going down the street and you're having a coffee and everyone's just normal to the, say, Canadian way of life, the American way of life, or, Portland, Oregon, or, whatever. There's so many different subdivides in London, right? You don't have all these experiences, but when you see it, you're just like, sweet Lord, and these cases, and mostly come from ancient tribes, ancient cultures, that's, I don't know, with ayahuasca is out in Peru and all sorts of craziness goes there, but I've heard the highest intelligence plant is ibogaine. And, I, do some shamanic type stuff at like Burning Man and healing and, just getting, and it's all intention, even when people, I've done all the courses too, anytime someone's going to tell me something about spirituality or connecting with myself or enlightenment or past lives, like I'm all in, like let me give this a try. And even if I'm healing, I think someone's telling me, I can't remember, but therapy is like letting spirit come through. It's like the intention of holding the space. So if I'm doing Reiki or if I'm doing healing or if I'm doing coaching, I'm just like, I'm going to remove this, please, higher intelligence, come on in, speak through me at myself, because I'm helping myself here, just mirroring, and help them, with whatever they need, because it's not me. And so when you complicate it, and you go into, it's got to be this system and this is the only way, we lose that real, just authentic intention of serving our fellow person. And what you said there, which I think is so profound, is the level of belief. So a friend of mine wrote the book, The Law of Attraction, And he has this analogy that goes 100% desire. You want a Ferrari, you want healing, you want a house, you want a girlfriend. 100% doubt equals 0 manifestation. 100% belief, unwavering, you're going to jump off the cliff and be a bird. He doesn't have that doubt. And that I can relate to, especially with snowboarding and skateboarding and commitment. And when I was in China training with Shaolin monks, when they're going to break stone like this with 2 fingers, and he breaks one like this over his head, like, 2 inches thick for those listening on podcast, over his head. I've considered being drunk before and trying to smash a beer bottle, which is ridiculous. But I so wanted to just test that, but the commitment it would take, So I think that's where that comes from, and that's the unwavering faith that you say, and I think that's so powerful. So,
the thing that you also triggered was because we're talking about miracles, these seeming extraordinary things, but you said something like, got to take a step, right? Got to take a step. How do we take a step to move people? And, so I grew up around all these miracles, like, wow, people are, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. But then I'll be honest, then I also came after hanging out with so many crazy people and interesting people, and my father included. It was like, well, so what? Okay, that's great. Now, so what? What about how we live our lives now? Because to me, that's where it's really at. And for those wondering, like, whoa, that's such an extraordinary thing, the miracle, the blind person seeing, it's like, okay, great. So what? That's great. But if you really want to see a miracle, I mean, sounds so simple, sounds so like cliche, but just take a deep breath, man. Like to really just take a deep, whoa, can that really happen? Like, what the hell is breathing us right now? Like something is going boom, 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 boom. That's like God. That's consciousness. That's like the thing we're chasing on the mountains, to get enlightened in the Himalaya. That thing, it's like, if we really sit with it, like if we really slow down and just go, wait a second, I'm being breathed by life. Holy shit. I'm being breathed by what the hell's doing that? Some force, some intelligence. And to just sit with that, I think if we really do, we recognize that there are trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of processes happening for us to even be able to speak. There are trillions of things for us to be able to see. So much, like every second, miracles are occurring inside of us. And yet we're going, well, that sounds so extraordinary. We are damn extraordinary. What we are is so hugely extraordinary, but we don't think about it. We're like, we take it for granted. We're like, oh, well, that just reserved for the guys in the Himalayas. It's like, you are a miracle. I am a miracle. It's mind-blowing grace happening each moment. I think if we really sit with that, we will become believers in the magic, in the mystery, in the miraculousness of life. And to acknowledge that it's happening, each moment.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you brought that up, because that was something that I was going to speak on, in when I was looking into, yogic practices and things like that. And a lot of the teachers, it's like, it's not about that miracle. Although that comes a byproduct of this work, you read the autobiography of a yogi and things like that. You don't do meditation to have miracles. It really is about how we live each and every moment.
How do you live your life?
That's the magic.
The miracle to me is can you forgive? The miracle is like, are you being yourself? The miracle for me is like, well, are you speaking your truth authentically to another? Are you opening your heart? How much are you loving? Like, this is miraculous. Like, how are you living your life? Because if it doesn't translate into how we're living our life, which I think life is perhaps the greatest spiritual opportunity, yoga and practice that's around, then doesn't mean anything. Okay, we levitate. Great, you can levitate, but you treat your wife like shit. You rude to your kids. You mean to everyone. You contract. Doesn't mean anything. It's great. It's potential, but how do we live moment to moment to moment? And I think life is a miracle. Each moment is a miracle. So miracles aren't just these woo-woo things out there. They're everyday moments.
Yeah, every moment.
Appreciate. And I think, when we shift our awareness and we bring our attention to to that, then each moment kind of becomes, I think we can transform the seemingly mundane into something magical. And that's a miracle, when we can transform every moment into like a holy moment, a sacred moment, a special moment, you know. Then it doesn't matter what we're doing. Then I think we could be, you know, taking a shit on the toilet, vacuuming, driving, having sex, changing the diapers, you know, cooking breakfast for our kid. Our attention, and where is our awareness within ourselves as we do what we do, gives us the ability to transform any moment into a spiritual moment. I think when we're able to do that, you know, when our heart is in that place of gratitude and recognition of the miracle that we are, the gratitude and recognition of how amazing this moment is, how amazing it is to be alive, how amazing it is to have this human experience, that we get to like be human beings and see colors and taste ice cream and have orgasms and talk to each. I mean, it's like, wow. You know, this is like, wow. Then I think no matter what we're doing, when we are able to observe where our attention is moment to moment as we do what we do, then I think life itself becomes you could say a spiritual temple without walls. You know, the whole thing becomes a spiritual experience. Every moment becomes a spiritual experience. Like even in this conversation with you and I, it's like, it's not just Kute speaking to Matt, you know, it's like the divine, God speaking to God, like what, like, whoa, this is kind of amazing. So I think we get to celebrate that each moment. Then each moment can transform.
Yeah, I loved all that. And I think that it's the recognition that it's all spiritual. You know, it's all spiritual, it's all magic, and it's the practice of coming back. Holy, this is amazing. Holy, this is amazing. I got to go do this task. Yeah, you know, let's do it. It's amazing. It's like in Zen, they give the same reverence to sweeping the floor that they do with Zazen meditation. It's the same thing. And how amazing is it to experience life? I remember reading, I don't know if it was Bashar or something like that, and they're communicating with angels, that kind of thing. And the angel's like, why the heck, the person's like, why the heck do we have this human experience? Like, it's really tough. It sucks. And he's just like, well, what does ice cream taste like? I love that. That's what spawned. Like, what about ice cream? Like, what about like all this amazing, well, driving a car fast, you know, climbing a tree, like life is amazing, but we have all this mental programming and garbage. And that's the problem, is that our minds are so easily manipulated to miss the sunset, to miss the magic, to miss the conversation, to miss.
And it's free.
Totally free.
The stuff you're talking about is free. You didn't have to pay for it, put it on the credit card. It's free.
Yeah, and I want to get into, because I think I'm curious to hear your version. Yes. Or like, I love how, and it's already going to be good, because it's like Bruce Lee when he did Jeet Kune Do, he didn't want to name it anything, because it's like, it's just you moving you. It's not, you know, karate, kung fu, you know. And the personal development stuff, like so many people, it's so challenging. I see the ego stronger there almost than anywhere, you know.
Yes.
You read
identity,
and
becomes another identity.
Yeah, you read one book and then, you know, but so I call that kind of like information. People get this information, but they have no experience, where you're learning, and that's great. We need to learn and sponge. But, you know, if you learn everything about how to do a backflip on a snowboard, and you just know exactly everything to do, but you've never done one, you don't know what the experience is like to go through and land it and earn that for yourself. And that's absolutely. These are just guidelines to look at, but you can do it your own way. I have, you know, one friend, Callum, and you know, I haven't seen him in a few years, and I have an amazing conversation with him, you know, around the fire in Whistler, and he just spends all his days out in the mountains, you know, just as many days as he can in the mountains, and he's just spewing off wisdom, and he's kind of like a crass dude, you know, and like you're just spewing off like this wisdom. I'm like, dude, I've been trying so hard to figure this shit out. Like, how the hell do you know this? You know what I mean? I was like, you know the same thing, and it's like the same intelligence working through, and he's just doing it in his way. He didn't need to go, you know, do yoga or 25 satanas, or no, this guru, you know, like Alan Watts says, my guru is better than your guru. Well, it's the recognition. I can't even say that word right now. So
recognition.
That you are the guru. You are the mother effing master. And
You're
actually,
the, you're the one. You're the one.
no one's coming to save you. It's you. You know, you can observe other yous to realize that it's all this simulation of your own video game to extend yourself. So it's your job to do in any way that you want. And by following your intuition, that's when the miracles happen. You know, I've gone all in so many times. And it's like when I go all in, I got to go all in more, you know, to make this podcast happen. And even if this shares, you know, one person and it touches them, that ripple of the intention that you and I are both carrying to serve. And that's another big thing I wanted to touch on, where your intention is to serve. And that's, you know, the meat and potatoes of Bhagavad Gita, the meat and potatoes of pretty much any spiritual teaching, or what is spiritual consciousness. It doesn't matter. You come down here, and if you can get out of your own selfish way and serve your community, life will be a lot better for you. Be as kind as you can, as forgiving as you can, and start serving. And this intelligence is going to find a way for you to do that. That's your unique expression. We got butterflies and bees and woodpeckers and, you know, moose and whatever, and everybody's just doing their thing. So you've got a thing as an individual human to put forth in this amazing space. So I don't know if you want to comment on that before I ask you a question.
Yeah, I think we all have a unique gift, and I think a lot of us we're looking at what can I get, you know, and I think that a life of getting leads to a limited life. I think no matter what we end up getting, at some point we reach a point of dissatisfaction. And many times we get what we thought we wanted based on who we thought we were, only to realize, wait a second, that's not really what I wanted, because I wasn't really in touch with who I really was. So I think when we recognize who we really are, we also realize that we are here to serve. We are here to be given through. So for me, you know, the perspective shifted many years ago when it went from, what do I want? What do I want to get? What do I want? What are my goals? And it shifted to what actually wants me? What wants to express through me? How does life want to express itself through me? And rather than trying to set my goals, actually opening myself and getting myself, kind of like what my father said, you know, getting myself out of the way so that I can allow life to move through. And I think that's a whole new paradigm versus like making my life, I'm going to make my life happen as a separate ego, to actually life is happening and I get to just open and let life move through me, let life flow through me, let life work through me, like the great ones, Buddha, Jesus, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. You look at these great ones, life, they got themselves out of the way, and life is what moved through them. And you know, those dreams, I always say, look, our dreams, our desires, our goals, really, they choose us. Our dreams choose us. Our goals choose us. We think we choose them. They choose us because based on our experience, based on our traumas, our pain, our successes, based on everything we've been through in this life, somehow we're uniquely crafted to be the perfect vessels and vehicles to be able to facilitate, to speak, to transmit the vision and the dream. And I always say that those dreams also, they don't belong to you. They don't belong to us. They belong to life. And in essence, we're just servants to the process. We're servants to the great process of life. We are servants to the mission, the vision, like my book, You Are the One, we talked about. I don't even feel like it's my book. You know, I feel like I'm a messenger and a servant of this book. And so I found that dreams and visions will take us on a journey. You know, a journey of having to become and evolve and let go and heal and transform, a journey of becoming the person who's able to really, truly be served through. So I think when we really let go at that level, then we can really be of service, you know, but it's not like us doing the service. We're being lived through and breathed through and loved through, and we just become vehicles for life. And to me, that's where the real revolution, the real magic happens. You look at Gandhi, who moved the culture, Mandela, who shifted the planet, you know, Mother Teresa, who loved the world. It's like they weren't doing it of themselves. And to me, that's where real service happens. And many times we think egoically, oh, I'm going to serve, but that's limited. You know, a real service happens when we recognize what it is that's living.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. It's a level of humility to do that. It's not an easy task, and everyone's going to have to go through that in their own way. And it's a gigantic shift. But it's okay. I'm hearing this. Okay, be of service. Cool. You know, baby's crying. I got dishes to do. all that kind of stuff. And like, no, give yourself 15 minutes and shut up and just start thinking about things. We ingest so consistently that we never give ourselves the time to think about these things that are so powerful. And if you can shift that, and I think that's the most fundamental shift. And that's how I can really relate to you, because I'm a big, in this space, I think that there's going to be interesting times for me as I kind of continue down the path, because I have a limited bullshit reader, and when you're, if you are doing something to be on stage, like a lot of people, there's in the self-development, they really want to be in front of people, which is great. And then they found a service is totally fine. But then they have this work and it's just for themselves to go through. But when you really are saying like, okay, look, I get to be here. This is a privilege. Thank you. But what is my real service? Am I really getting out of the way, or have I found a way for my ego to kind of create something else for myself? And I've kind of seen some people go on this path of up and down where, oh, I figured it out, and then now I'm doing this, and then all of a sudden, after this kind of act, this new ego, mutation has come on, then they're like, oh, damn. And this is where the importance of that humility, and that's why, you don't take that from you. Like when I do coaching or, Zen Athlete, when that's out in like a month, that's not my book. Like I wrote it, but nothing is mine. Like literally nothing is mine. Literally, if I can give and pump out 50 books, Wayne Dyer said the same thing. He's like, these are just coming through me, like where does it come from? Where the hell does thought come from? You're going to own thought, And so this ego is like, wants to, just like take it. And when you have that, then you have this level of humility and selflessness, and you're going to be able to adapt to your life circumstances so much more, but you're going to enjoy your life. And this is what it comes down to. It's not about this comparison or judgment. It's your own. You wake up and you are the judge of you. When you die, you get that mirror for yourself. So where in that mirror for yourself are you kind of not being your authentic self? Where are you, creating things to get these mind of rewards or gold pieces of nonsense? And that's the ego trick. The ego is going to say, hey, you want this flashy thing, you should work towards it. Then you're going to be worthy and cool and loved. But when you go the other way and say, how can I serve this planet and serve others and remove and get in touch with this much bigger thing? It's a whole level up. It's, I could almost compare it to something like, I say this for, meditation when I pop on occasion, but it's like a duck's consciousness to like whatever a human's consciousness, like that gap. And it doesn't need to be that amazing. It can be, holy, I'm going to live my life of service. I don't give a darn about me. I ask Spirit to please provide me with my family so I can have things to eat, but I swear to you, I'm going to live this and you just use me. And so with this intention and you going through, with your book and finding a path, what are some ways, what do you teach in your book? What are you trying to help bring out in people? What are some common obstacles, in the mind game that people have for themselves? And, how do you help them to live this way? Because even for me, I just find it as like, I got to this point once of reading so many books. And I was like, when I read this book, then I'll know. Okay, when I meditate an hour a day for a month straight, then I'll know. Well, guess what? They all did little things, but it's like it's this intuitive game. So for me personally, it's been getting better and better and better at listening to my gut, taking care of my mind, body, and spirit kind of takes care of itself. But just be freaking nice and just be willing. That's I just wake up and I'm like, I'm willing to be of service. Use me however you're going to use me. I'm totally down, and I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to be in shape, and I'm going to be nice to everybody, and even the a-holes. And those of you experiencing the a-holes, it's probably because you're an a-hole. Because I travel all over the world, states, every single country, and my experience with a-holes is like almost non-existent. And I truly believe we're a reflection of ourselves. So, you know what I mean? Clean up your own stuff. When you get the opportunity, thank that a-hole, show them love, and you will start to see less and less and less. So that's my rant. So you pick it up from here and drop some of your books.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about what are some things that when we're born. I'll answer your question in a couple of ways, but when we're born, we're born free. There's a freedom there. You look at a child will jump on a table and sing and dance and express itself. It doesn't care, like, it doesn't have all this mind shit like, can I sing, or am I fat, or what do you think of me, or this person's like tall, or the guy has a beard, or black, or white, or green. It's just like fully open, just come up to you, love you, and hug you. So I think when you look into a child's eyes, a child is they're in touch with their essence, the divine essence of who they are. It's shining through them, it's moving through them. But obviously then as we incarnate, we're born into this world, into this existence, and before you know it, we meet our parents who, they're interesting characters. Some are a little crazy, some are challenged, and they've been programmed by their parents and their parents and their parents. So now that program has come to us. So all of a sudden we're born free, then we meet our parents and we go into school and media and what have you, and slowly we start getting conditioned. And this is where the sort of conditioning starts. So we start getting conditioned, and we start learning two things. We start learning, firstly, a way of being. Maybe we face pain, trauma, hurt, abuse, divorce, whatever it was. We all have our stories, right? So we start learning a way of like, what mechanisms do I need to create so that I don't have to feel the pain of whatever is going on, the insanity of my childhood and the stories and the family. How do I not feel? So we start developing these mechanisms within ourselves to stuff parts of ourselves down, to shut parts of ourselves off, to suppress parts of ourselves, just so that we can survive and not feel the pain. And before you know it, the more we stuff, more layers build up. And before you know it, we're kind of like, we start losing touch with that full light, with that full magnificence. And then we go out into the world and we start going, well, who do I need to be for my dad to love me? Who do I need to be in the world for my mother to love me? And we start developing a persona and a mask and a character and a way of being that we then hold very tightly onto, and it becomes me. And we think that this creation, this conditioned creation character is who we really are. But I always say it's not really who we often say, well, no, it's just who I am. No. Most of the time we've become a version of ourselves. But I always ask people, is who you've become who you really are, or it's simply who you've been conditioned to be? And then we end up often locked into that persona, that way of being, and it inhibits our free expression, and we get stuck in the mind, and all these thoughts arise from that conditioning. So I think really why we're here, and the courageous path, is to be willing to, number one, question ourselves. Because most of the time when we're locked in this conditioned way of being, we become a nice guy, we become an independent person, we become the yes person, we become the know-it-all, we become the caretaker, we develop these identities that we're often not conscious of, that are survival mechanisms in response to our experience growing up. So we develop these ways of being to protect ourselves. And to the degree we're identified with these ways of being and we think that's who we are, is also to the degree that we're not free. And we think we have free will, we think we have free choice. And I often say to people who say, no, I have free choice. Well, if you have free choice, would you have really chosen that person in relationship? If you had free will, would you have really done half of the shit you have done? Really? Oh, well, I guess not, because we're not as free as we really think. So I think one of the first things is we have to recognize, wow, I've been conditioned and I'm not aware. Then we have to start becoming aware. And then the second thing I also feel is we have to start being willing to tell the truth, because so often we get so invested in who we are, we get so invested in who we've become, because it worked for us when we were 5. That way of being worked for us when we were 7. It worked for us when we were 14. But now it's maybe getting in the way of our free expression. Sometimes we even get really reinforced for being that persona, for being that way, for being that character. And we even create success based on that. But we always reach a point where it starts inhibiting us. So I think we have to start also being very honest. And it also disconnects us from our ability to feel deeply, feel authentically, feel what our deepest truth is, our deepest longing is, our deepest gifts are. So I think when we're not in touch with who we really, 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 really are, we end up chasing goals that are based on an illusion. We end up chasing goals that are based on trying to get certain needs met that weren't met as children. We try to get some of those needs met. And I always say that when we're not really in touch with who we are, you might attain everything in the world, but it often won't really be fulfilling. It often won't deeply be authentic for you. So I think the more we're able to be aware, be conscious of our conditioning, but also start telling the truth. I think one of the hardest things to do is tell the truth. One of the first steps for someone to make a shift, talk about a baby step or a miracle step, is tell the truth. Many times we are bullshitting ourselves, we are lying to ourselves, we are in denial, we are rationalizing, we're settling because we're afraid. I mean, as a young boy, the truth I had to tell myself, which was very hard, was my father's path for my life wasn't my life. And that was very hard to for me to tell myself because of my fear of the consequences. And one of the games that I see that we play, many of us play, is this game of, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what my purpose is. I'm not sure if this relationship is right for me. Should I be in it? I don't know. I'm confused. I'm confused what I should do. So we play this game of confusion. We often play this game of I don't know and I confusion, when deep down at our deepest level, we do know, we have a sense, but we're often denying that knowing because of the fear of what will happen. We're often afraid of being who we are or speaking the truth too, because we're afraid if I really speak the truth, if I'm really who I am, then you won't love me. Then I'm going to lose. Then I'll be alone. So then we lie, then we deny, and that perpetuates. So I think part of freedom and being happy is simple. It's not always easy, but it requires the courage to tell the truth. Last things I'll say really is I think there's a few questions we have to ask ourselves and really be honest, is the willingness to say, okay, where am I lying to myself? What am I lying to myself about? What am I pretending to not know? What am I pretending to not know? That the knowing of which would really revolutionize and change my life. So that's the first thing. What is it costing me to be lying? What are these lies costing me? And to be willing to feel the pain of what being in denial and lying and the untruths we're telling ourselves about. What the untruth could be: this relationship's not really working for me, or I'm not really aligned, or the job I'm in is not really in alignment with my soul. But we keep lying to ourselves. No, it's not so bad. Simply because, no, the truth is, I hate my job and I'm afraid to leave because I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. That's the truth. So I'm staying in my job and I'm selling out. I'm prostituting myself. I'm just selling myself out, and it's painful, but that's what I'm going to do. And I think when we tell ourselves the truth, even if we don't take action on it, even if we don't take action, like we don't leave our job today, just telling ourselves the truth begins a process, and it starts burning something inside. Like, wow, I hate my job. I'm too afraid to leave because of the money, and I'm going to stay, even though and that starts stirring something inside of us, the burn of the truth burns. So I think when we can say, okay, what is it costing me? And then we really ask ourselves, what am I afraid of? Because many times we're running from something and we're not really exactly sure what we're running from. We're not exactly sure what the hell it is we're afraid of. And I think when we can face our fear, many times the thing we're afraid of is not nearly as terrifying when we just look at it and face it and are able to make peace with, okay, I could probably deal with that. I mean, it's not ideal, but I could probably deal with that consequence. So something happens when you can face that. The last question is, and this is a simple one, because we're often focused on all the negative things that might happen by being ourselves, speaking the truth, but actually asking, what great thing might happen? What possibility might open up by speaking the truth, being who I really am, and owning that? So I think that can open up a whole new world of like miracles. Like, wow, this might open up. I might meet someone else. I might find a new job. I might start my own business. What possibilities? And I think that focus creates an opening for us that's really, 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 really powerful. So the bottom line, the question I ask is, who are you really? Because I think when we can really get in touch with who we really are, then we can build the foundation of an authentic life. And then we can go about choosing goals, choosing relationships, aligning our lives to really, attract in alignment with who we really. I think the real law of attraction really is being who you are, because in the world you attract essentially not just what you want, but who you really are and where you're resonating within yourself. So the more we uncondition ourselves, become aware, become conscious, feel the stuff that we've denied, let that go, tell the truth, and connect to our true essence, then we attract a mirror manifestation, relationships and experiences in our lives that reflect our true nature.
Very well said, man. Very beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
I would just like to comment on a few epic wisdom bombs you dropped there. I think it's so important when you talk about truth, speaking the truth to yourself, And
Yeah.
what really happens is people are afraid of what they'll lose. And we live in a place that is not secure. You know, I say that sometimes people are living lives based on the least amount of risk and not the
Yep.
most amount of love. And in that game of least risk, it's most fear. And you know, that's where one thing I'm proud of myself for is being able to courageously make stupid decisions in faith, because I'm like, this is what my heart's telling me to do. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. You know, I'm not going to write this down or share it with a lot of people or really tell them what's going on because they don't need to know. But I know that I'm following that. And so we make a little compromise after little compromise after little compromise. And then all of a sudden, we effing hate our lives. And so, you know, by telling the truth to ourselves, you know, and that internal dialogue, you know, we're playing small. You know, we have to convince ourselves that we're small. I kind of see this, you know, vision of that little kitten and it's a lion, but like you're the lion and you think you're a kitten and you're infinitely powerful and you have no idea because our conditioning is designed for you to play small. It's for you to want a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. I know people with way too much money and they'll tell me like, oh yeah, if I had some money, I'd do this. And like, you live in a $2 million house. I mean, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, get a smaller house. And like, dude, my dream is to drive an RV around. You know what I mean? I got a little bit of space. It can be anywhere. And I was like, what kind of choices are you making? And then you got people that are, you know, I don't know, doing it 9 to 5 differently. But I was thinking like, you know, with what your dad does and that unwavering truth and you having someone look at you and recognize you for who you are as a perfect, multidimensional angel, God, infinite being in human form that's loved by all of the universe for coming. And you've got your dad there, or you, or me as well as I could do it. I don't, you know, take some lessons from dad, but like, who are you? Who are you? Because this story that's come from your past experiences that you've told yourself that you want to keep embedding, and that's the consistency part of the mind where, you know, we've created this story and you've only had your first 10 years to create this story or 20 years. Went onto that crap like luggage until you're like 70, convincing who that you're this person. Who the heck are you convincing that you're this, you know, this victim, or you're this make 90 grand or 50 grand or 200 grand, or I am a secretary, or I am insurance or whatever, like, you know, but you can do, then, you know, to say those people that have jobs that are, you know, your jobs, you can live. I know people, I call them the city monks, you know, they are grateful and they're in the moment and they are serving people. And then for those people, I just say, cool, great. Now just think bigger. Now just think you're super stoked on what you have. Now, you know, if I could give you everything that you wanted, what would that be? And then they just, oh, cool. Like, it's not going to make me more fulfilled and more loving and more appreciative of the sunset than I already am. But because I'm an infinite, multidimensional, kick-ass being, then, you know, let's start to play with this dimension and my experiences in this dimension and not allow a story to limit that.
Right. Absolutely. We are huge. But one of the things that limits us, you know, is the more we get conditioned, we start sort of believing we're this limited body. Number one, we also start believing we are the mind. And so I often tell people, look, you are not your mind. And I often tell people, look, just because a thought, when we have all these thoughts in our minds, and one of the things that limit us is we're constantly believing all these thoughts that go through our head. And I tell people we have like 65,000, 85, have like 75,000 thoughts a day that are running through our mind, most of the same, which are the same as yesterday. And most of which are passed down to us from generations upon generations upon generations. We don't even like have control of us. Some of this stuff is just happening so fast. So I often tell people, look, if we believe everything in our mind, we will never really truly tap into our greatness, our full potential, our unlimitedness. So we have to recognize that you are not the mind. And just because a thought is in your mind doesn't really mean it's real. And I also tell people, look, it's not just the thoughts that are important, because thoughts are just happening. And if you spend your life just trying to control your thoughts, it might drive you a little crazy, you know? So I think to be able to recognize that really the thoughts aren't just important, but the importance you give them and your relationship with those thoughts are really what's important. And the more we can shift our relationship with those thoughts rather than resisting them and fighting them, trying to get rid of them, making them wrong and fixating them, attaching to them, identifying with them, kicking them, just realize I'm not those thoughts, and just have that relationship with those thoughts. Because when we don't, those thoughts will often hijack our awareness. Those thoughts will hijack our freedom. Those thoughts will often hijack our ability to take action in the world, to move forward, to give our gifts to life. So one of the questions I always ask myself constantly is, number one, like, where is my attention right now? You know, where is my attention right now? Oh, well, it's floating over. Where is my? Oh, it's floating. It's on that person. Oh, where's my? And just bringing my attention back into this moment, right here, right now, in the present moment. Where's my attention? And the other thing I kind of asked myself too, that really helped is, what is it? What is it that I'm always doing? What is it that I'm always doing? Like, what is the thing that I'm always doing? You know, oh, I'm always in my thoughts. Oh, I'm always comparing myself. Oh, so what is it I'm always doing? And start to recognize, and I think the more aware we can be, because most of the time we're not aware. When we kind of catch a train of a thought and identify with a thought, it spirals us down, and then we feel like shit. And maybe we've been kind of unconscious for 2 days or 2 hours or 20 minutes, and I feel horrible. I think that pain or that horrible feeling is just a signal for us to calibrate and bring us back into the moment of awareness, to go, oh, where's my attention? Oh, okay. Okay, I see. I haven't been present. And I think the more we can be present in the moment, then the more we have the ability to observe ourselves. And I think if we're able to observe our thoughts, if we're able to observe ourselves, then we can recognize that if I can observe my thought, if I can observe my mind, if I can observe whatever it is, then I'm not that thing. And then there's a freedom, because many times we actually are so identified with the thought or that pattern or that way of being that we actually think we are that thing. And then we're in the grip of the limitation. But if we can observe our thought as an example, then we recognize, well, if I can observe it, then I'm not it. Then there's some space that happens. And then you could say a first small step towards having a lot of freedom, rather than being so stuck in it that we're sure that we're it, that I am that story. No. If you can observe that story, if I can observe it, then can't be it. So I think that's the beginning, to start observing yourself moment to moment.
That's beautiful, and it's super important. That's the process of meditation is just observing the thoughts. And people without that practice or awareness, whether you do it you listen to a podcast like this, or you try a meditation and you see these thoughts coming by, and because sometimes you have crazy thoughts, you know what I mean? Like
crazy.
I want to, ice cream, and I don't know, like some sort of stupid crap. And then sometimes you'll think like evil thoughts, and you're like, oh my God, like, am I an evil person? I think evil thoughts sometimes, like, oh my God.
The ice cream part, though, every now and again, we can let that one.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, totally, right. But you'll think something, and then it creates a feeling, but it's just an observation. Like, where the heck are these things coming from?
Exactly.
I use which ones I'm going to give attention, energy, and focus to. And when you're saying, what am I doing all the time? What am I doing all the time? Whatever you give your attention, energy, and focus to, you get more of. Whatever you focus on is where you are putting your attention. That's where you're putting your energy. That's where you're putting your beingness. And our intention and our focus is everything. And I can't remember what the quote is, but there's something along the lines that nothing means anything until we attach meaning to it. Right? Yeah. So I can't remember who said that, but there's something along those lines. So one great one that I remember in saying that is saying to yourself that everything that happens to you is for your greatest good. Good, bad, ugly, and in between. And so I had a taste of my own karma, like a couple times, my own medicine, whereas I got back from traveling Europe, and I stayed at my buddy's house, and we're catching up, and we went to the pub and we were drinking. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll be responsible and I'll leave my car out. And so I get back, I got all my stuff in my car, my back window's punched out, and I'm like, and my first thing is just anger, I was like, okay, cool. So angry.
This is your moment.
Yeah, so right. So that's what I'm thinking. I was like, oh, well, you know what I mean? If I'm going to say it, like I got to do it. So I'm like, okay, this has got to be for my highest good. This has got to be for my highest good. And it takes a second because I'm a human being. You know, this process, these practices are not easy. It's consistent every single day. You just, when you do it more, you realize if you've let yourself go for a day, 2 days, a week, a month, 6 months, a year, or 2 years in misery or whatever bullcrap you're telling yourself. So I'm driving down the street and I'm just like, this is good. And then I turn on some music and I'm stoked and the car gets fixed and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, long story short of craziness, but, you know, as I waited for my car to get fixed, I was going to go back to Ontario, caused me to go to Whistler, caused me to get perfect timing to go down to LA, to go to Lightning in a Bottle Festival, to meet amazing people, to meet a group of people with You Will Change the World, authors, speakers, all these connections down in Vegas now, because I got a ticket and I was going to leave the next morning to finish my road trip from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, across continuing east. And just in the nick of time, I had enough incentive to go down. It was a huge incentive. And so went down and boom. And if that didn't happen, it wouldn't have been the catalyst. But then you have all these other opportunities as well, right? You know, and so a lot of people will say their biggest challenges and their biggest pain ended up being their biggest gift, but you have to give it a perspective and a meaning that allows for that to happen, right? And it might not happen. It might be really traumatic. It might be really painful. But if you can go through it and you can accept it and you can, like you said, I love what you said earlier about facing that thing. You know, if you're working a job and you hate it and you look at what if you did what you loved, and how bad it might get, you know, maybe you end up on welfare. But if you're listening to this, you're probably in Canada or the US and you're going to be totally fine. So what if you just live with less and you just loved what you did every day? So yeah, I think that's all extremely important and extremely powerful. I wanted to ask you, because I know we only have 10 minutes left. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about? Any kind of like question that you felt like you wanted to go down, you know,
I'm open, man. I'm open, brother. Wherever you want to go in the next 10 minutes, I'm available. Anything you feel would
all right. So I got one more. It was in the email that we had sending out here. Hold on one second. I fear some sort of vacuuming outside. I'm sure the mic's gonna pick it up. Hold on one second. All of a sudden there's some sort of loud I don't know if you could hear it. Hopefully not. So in the email, you could hear it?
Nope.
Oh, okay, that's good then. In the email, it talks about coming into the feminine, and I have thoughts about that. I have theories about that whole thing. And so, if you're in tribal culture, you know, do you get into kind of like spirits and angels and like our shifting consciousness or any kind of madness like that? Because I'm all about it. But I love my perception of when you said we're going into like the feminine, and you can speak on this, but I think that's where we're shifting, where we've had a male dominated culture for thousands of years, war and greed and acquisition and all this, too much male stuff. Male energy is great, you know, masculine energy is great, but we can get carried away because we're a bunch of dummies.
Yep.
So, you know what I mean? That's why we have the females in, be like, hey, like, yeah, do this and do these stupid things, but also like,
yeah, I think, you know, I mean, I just have maybe one quick thing to say about it is I just think there's a shift happening, you know, a shift where we're becoming more conscious, but also in that awareness, I think when I say the feminine, it's just, you know, from a paradigm of competition, from a paradigm of, you know, ego, kind of, because a male competition, to community, to cooperation, to from linear to more multi-dimensional sensitivity, where we're opening to the inner worlds, not just the external, redefining success, where it's not just what did you achieve but it's also about who are you becoming, how are you evolving, how are you feeling, tapping into our feelings again, you know, and tapping into the sensitivity of that, but also the feminine qualities, you could say, of intuition and creativity and aliveness and joy and spontaneity and flow and heart connection. So I think when I say feminine, I think it's available for us all, but I really feel we get to re-embrace these things as old systems fall apart, as old paradigms fall apart. We get to reintegrate these parts of ourselves into our culture, but into ourselves as human beings, so that we can really be whole and come alive again, and experience just the beauty of each moment. And I think, we also start realizing, look, the happier I am, likely the more productive I'm going to be, and the more joy I'll have, the more successful I'm going to be. So I'm really excited about the times that we're living in as well, because I really feel as though, as old systems collapse, as old paradigms collapse, we're being forced to go inside. I think we're being forced to really question more than ever in these times, who am I and why am I here, and who am I really? If I'm not that thing that I used to have and that thing I used to be, then who the hell am I? And I think, so we've had the Industrial Revolution, and we're kind of in this technological revolution, which is exciting. But I think also we're, in the midst of the greatest spiritual revolution that the world has ever seen, and that somehow you and I, in these times where there's this shift happening, we have won the cosmic lottery ticket to be alive right now at this time, front and center, to participate in the awakening of humanity, the awakening of the world as we're going through our evolution. The planet, which is this, you could say, living, breathing organism, is also waking up, and our awakening affects its awakening, and we're all part, the micro of the macro, we're all part of that. And, it said, was it 15, however many billion years ago, when the world exploded as this cosmic fireball that just exploded into this existence, there was different species. And I think for the longest time, I really feel as though we have somehow, as at least the mainstream, we felt like as human beings, like we've evolved as much as we can evolve. Like we're the highest aspect of evolution. Like this is it, And I think these times are like, it's the pressure cooker of these times. I think it's like cracking the limitations of our evolution open, where technology is blowing open things that were possible. But I think the pressure cooker of these times is blowing open who we are as human beings, what it means to truly be awake, like in the very first species that was in existence, that I think was the Homo habilis. Then it evolved into the Homo erectus, and it just Homo Neanderthal, Homo sapien, which we are now. But I think like during these times, like that consciousness that has been gestated by people in the Himalayas, the great yogis, the mystics, the masters, the enlightened beings, that consciousness that they gestated is really, like, I think we're moving into that level of like, wait a second, that's what we all are. That's what we all need to rise up into. So I think what excites me as we embrace the feminine, we embrace all these parts of ourselves, is that we also move into the next level of evolution where, I was thinking someone the other day, almost like we're born and we could say the goal of life is to wake up, to become enlightened. We do the spiritual practice to become enlightened. But I almost see as everything, as we move into a next evolution of what it is to be human, from the Homo sapien to the, I think Teilhard de Chardin called it the Homo noeticus, the new human that is in touch with their divinity. Like it's no longer a big deal to be like, yeah, I'm God. Of course I'm divine. Right? Versus like, you mean I'm not the body? You mean there's more? Of course I'm infinite. It's like, of course you have a nose. Of course. It's just obvious. Like, what? Big deal. It's just what is, So I think as we move into that next, the enlightenment becomes the baseline for our existence. Our awakeness becomes the baseline. And I think as the next generation, children are born into that new consciousness, they're no longer trying to like do the practices to get enlightened. They already come in awake. And I think we get to swim in a whole new soup of soul, man. I think it's going to be really exciting times that we're living in right now. And I really feel that each of us, we have a responsibility in some sense to realize that our awakening, our practice, everything we let go of, everything we heal or shift within ourselves, we don't just do for ourselves, but we impact the generations that came before us, but also our children and children's children and their children will be profoundly gifted by being able to stand on the shoulders of our consciousness, and be even more awake. So I think it's a whole beautiful process of evolution that is happening right now. And I think it's exciting times. It's amazing, amazing times.
That's amazing, dude. I 100% agree and love that. So extremely well put. I agree. So many things I'd love to go deep on, but we'll have time. But I'll just say all the Zen masters and the yogis and the Tibetan monks holding that vibration on the planet, like thank you to that lineage, to cultures around the world in the Amazon and in Africa holding that space for the rest of us to come up. And I 100% agree. We are in so exciting times. I think we all chose to be here for this awakening.
Absolutely.
For this. This is a simulation for spirit, and we've picked the best playground, and we can make it heaven and we can make it hell for ourselves. And more of us are realizing that true infinite nature is within us. And I remember telling my mom once, and I was like, yeah, I just realized in my early 20s, I was like, when I was doing a lot of the work, but I was having the experiences, I was like, I realized that I was God and so are you. And I was like, I know that the ego part is, it's challenging to understand. And she's like, I really have a problem with that. But it's a space where that divine, it's not Matt Belair is God, it's not the ego. That's, some nonsense. It's like that's in me and it's expressing itself and it's moving and dancing. And I kind of am playing some sort of role in it, but it's really powerful. And I totally agree with all that. And I just wanted to thank you for your work. Thank you for your intention. I think your intention is amazing. And I think as humans, we really do have a choice of where we're putting our attention. And then if you can match that up with your words and your actions, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? You're living in integrity. And if you can do that, and the more of us that do that show compassion when we're getting gas, when we're showing another human a smile, we're showing them, an opportunity to love. And that's where we're moving more into love. And we may face challenges. And some people's challenges will be more difficult than others. And if you can take those really challenging experiences and transmute it, you're going to have more of an experience and a love and a power to share that with other people. You have chosen to go through a more challenging time to relate to people, and say, hey, look, you can't use that as in a victim mode excuse anymore. I can do it, and so can you. Let me lift you up. I love you. You are infinitely loved, and all of that. So just thank you for, being you and spreading that love and information and passion and intention. Where can these lovely listeners that are listening to this find out more about you and what you're trying to spread and how they can get involved in anything that you're up to?
Thank you, man. Really, appreciate you having me on and showing me some love. And it's been fun hanging with you so far. I feel your heart, feel your intention, and keep doing your amazing work, brother. For those that feel a calling to just connect more, hang out, say hi, find out more about my work, there's a couple of sources. You can go to www.youaretheonebook.com. That's www.youaretheonebook.com. You can buy the book there. I want everyone to experience the book. It's really touching lives, and there's some amazing free giveaways there. My main website is www.kuteblackson.com. And also I do a special event twice a year called www.boundlessblissbali.com, where you can find out more info there. And social media, connect with me on Facebook, say hi. There's tons of videos I have out there that are able to be accessed for free. And I just look forward to connecting with anyone who feels moved. Just send me a message, say hi.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you once again. Thank you all there, everyone out there listening. We'll catch you later. Until next week. Lots of love.
Peace.
Bye.